I want to take a moment today to look at the Onyxia Phase 3 aggro grab. So I'm getting better at this as I learn more and I get lucky, so I just want to kind of analyze what I was able to do. So in this particular fight, we have different tanks that were assigned to pick up whelps, and so Wartorn, wherever he is in this picture, was picking up the boss for Phase 1, and I was going to try to do my best to pick up aggro in Phase 3. So knowing that my intention is that I want to tank Onyxia, I wear some fire resist gear. This puts me at about 220 with buffs, so it's about 160 without the totem. And I do that because I don't want the fire breath to cause a big spike to my damage that I'm taking, because it will make it much harder for the healers, especially when they're being feared around by the different mechanics in Phase 3. That does mean it's also going to be a little bit harder for me to pick up because I'm taking less damage, generating less rage, and just I don't have quite as good stats on the fire resist gear, but compromises must be made. Okay, so let's fast forward into the fight here. Yeah, there's me suiting up with all my different consumables. Okay, so we're about to run in. With the run in, I like to kind of give a wide berth, and so to give you a sense of what I'm doing, yeah, let's pause here. Here's Onyxia's circle. Here's Wartorn, and he's going to be backing up, but he can't just straight up back up. Onyxia will stop at different points. She might get to, for instance, here, and then stop in order to do an ability like Fire Breath, and then she will keep walking. And very often what happens is that people who are following, right, we kind of can't stay all together tightly just because it's very difficult to do. When she gets to this point where she stops, she does the ability, which is a frontal cone. And so people who were up in this region, they're looking at Wartorn thinking they have to be at an angle from Wartorn, but that's not correct. They need to be at an angle from the boss. But I understand the pressure because if Wartorn's backing up as the main tank for this phase, and you're a healer, you have to do something. And so they're kind of getting pinched in this way. Okay, so Wartorn, he's about 2/3 health. He's getting heals. Okay, there was that stop. So I'm actually going to go back just a little bit and look at the stop. So he's backing up, and then Onyxia here. Where is it? Here. Okay, so she stopped at that moment to breathe fire. Here's her fire. And then there is Wartorn, who's made a sizable distance because Onyxia stopped in her tracks. And it's really hard when you're in front to tell that she stops in her tracks. So that is going to catch anybody in the frontal cone. And it looks like, thankfully, only this time we got one person. And it was, I believe, the healer that was trying to heal Wartorn because he had backed up so far. Okay, he also gets knocked back. I mean, that can't be avoided. Okay, so at this point, the fight is about to start. I've let Wartorn get a lead on threat, and he's using that thing from Nomergon, so he's going to start going up on threat very quickly, as bears can do. And once I let him get that threat, then I'm thinking about how I can support him. So I'm going to be using Demoralizing Shout. I'm also going to be applying Sunders. These are things that he cannot do for himself. I mean, he can use Demoralizing Roar, but he's got other things that he needs to be busy with right now. Looks like the first one was resisted. I'm also going to try to time the fire breaths so that I can run over and use Battle Shout on him to help him generate more threat, although he probably doesn't need it at this point. He's like 20k ahead. He kind of surprised us with how much he could generate so quickly. Yeah, so I wait for the fire breath, and then I run in and battle shout, and then run back out again. Okay, so I want to notice, at least at this point, that some of the casters are not conserving. So we were hoping that casters would conserve their mana, particularly ranged DPS, would conserve their mana during Phase 1 so that they could unload during Phase 2. So I'm going to want to check in later to see how these casters are doing in Phase 2 and that they're not running out of mana. Okay, so we're getting into kind of the meat of Phase 1. So one of the drawbacks of the bear tank is that they do take a lot of damage. They have a lot of hit points to make up for it, but all of that magic damage, I mean, I don't think he's wearing fire resist gear, so he's taking big spikes, and it's harder on the healers. But the healers are full mana, so they're doing fine. There's too many healers for me to mark them all. I do see still a lot of mana usage by the ranged DPS, so again, I'll look at that later. Where am I on threat? So I have stayed in defensive stance because I want to very carefully position myself on the threat table. Right now I am listed on the bottom, but I'm probably a few places below the folks here, just because the threat table always puts you at the bottom even if you're off the chart. So I'm looking at what's going on, kind of where people are. This is all of the melee DPS. I'm seeing a lot of melee. I think Tosia's enhancement. I don't remember Sophia's spec. Covenant is melee DPS. Zukia shouldn't be here as a ranged DPS. Valishi is melee DPS. So what I want to do is there's going to be a break after Phase 2, or rather there's going to be a breakaway. War-Torn is going to get the first fireball. The people in the next, maybe the one after that, they are going to get fireballed and have all of their threat dropped. So a great place for me to be in threat is right about here, which right now is 15k. So like 15k would be a nice place to be, and this will be different for every raid. Depends on your composition, your strategy. So I'm kind of, I know how the raids that I join works, so I'm trying to kind of gauge based upon the expectations I have for those players. Now, why am I not worried about getting fireballed below that amount? Because what's going to happen is all of the ranged DPS that's down here right now, or ideally down here right now, is going to surge during Phase 2, and then they are going to be the people who get fireballed. And so I am not worried about passing, or they'll pass me on threat and then soak a lot of the fireballs. Okay. So you can see I'm just pooling rage. I'm at the top of my bar. I'm just kind of flying casual. Doing a little bit. I'm trying to aim for about 15k based on what I just said. Okay, I'm about 15k. I'm just walking away. I don't want to be generating more threat right now. I'm eyeing where it is. Okay, stage 2 is beginning. Okay, let's take another stock. Where do I want to be? Here's War-Torn. He's going to be the first to be fireballed because he's top on the threat. And that's actually going to make it very difficult for him to tank on Phase 3 because he's going to have to catch up. He'll be at 0. I have 1, maybe 2 here, and then right about here would be a good place for me. Where is that? That's about 20k. And where am I at? I'm at 15k. So a little bit of catch-up would be nice. So I'm doing some melee. Okay, I even go lower. So I noticed that a lot of the melee have ended up in there, so this hasn't quite gone to the plan that I originally had. That's not melee. But a lot of the melee have surged, and so now I kind of got to think about where I want to be when Onyxia lands. Again, kind of looking here, that's a good place to think about. So what is this? This is like 23 to 24k. 23 to 24k would be nice to end up at. Let's see what I end up doing. Okay, so I've got all the rage in the world. I am just eyeing the battlefield right now because I do not want to accidentally step into someone's fireball. I notice there's a lot of whelps. One thing I can do is I can go over and melee the whelps in order to get rage, which is nice because then I can use it on Onyxia. But I'm not really focusing on Onyxia right now. I want things to kind of find equilibrium with Onyxia. So I try not to use abilities, although I do use Demo Shout there just to grab a couple more whelps because they're starting to move around quite a bit. But yeah, I'm just floating at the top of my rage bar. I'm not worried about my DPS output because I'm focusing on trying to be the one that picks up the boss because it will help everyone if I'm able to affect this. Okay, here's our look on the boss again. I am about 17k. The melee, okay, so look at the melee. Is still basically at almost the same spot. We're looking at about 24k would be a great place to be. And we have a surge. This is a ranged DPS member here, Zilt. And so some of the ranged is coming up to the top because they are the only ones who can do significant DPS during phase 2. And so they will rise to the top, and then they will be fireballed if they're at the top. And so this is a mechanic that I know to expect. So I'm at 17k. I have to catch up. Stage 3 soon. Okay, so this is sooner than I expected, so I might be in a bit of trouble. So here I am. These are the only people who are on the DPS chart above me. Okay, so what can I do here? I want to be... Well, okay, ultimately I want to be at the top. But the top has one disadvantage, which is I don't know exactly when phase 3 is going to start. If I am wrong, and I think it's going to start earlier, but it starts later, I will be at the top of the threat list, and I will receive the fireball, and all of my work will be lost. I won't be tanking Onyxia, and I will look like a fool. However, if I am too far down, then this is too low, and all of these people in the middle will be eaten. So I have to gauge where I want to be based upon my expectations of what's about to happen. So my expectations right now is that I'm too low. I'd like to be, if not maybe like third, second, fourth, somewhere in there. Somewhere in there, and the there right now is like 25k would be a great place to be. So I got some catch up. It said phase 3 soon on my screen. Got to watch out for that fireball. If I catch a fireball, like if Amy Lane caught a fireball, if I caught it by accident, I would have been in some big trouble. So I'm just using Shield Slam because it's the most rage efficient way of generating threat. I'm about 20k. A few folks are getting fireballed. Okay, stage 3. So how did I do? I'm still a little bit lower on threat than I would have liked, but it's not too bad. Okay, so these people are in danger of being eaten. So now my work is done in terms of preparing for phase 3. Now it is phase 3. I need to do as many things as I can in order to get threat as fast as possible. And I have not pulled as much rage as I would have liked. So I've got blood rage here I can use. I can use a rage potion. I can use berserking. I can switch over to Berserker Stance and use Recklessness, which has 2 effects. It makes me do critical hits with every swing. It also means that I'm immune to the fear mechanics that would make me stop doing DPS while she is eating whoever's on the eating list. Now, if I do that, though, I'm going to switch over to Berserker Stance, hit Recklessness, and then go straight back into defensive stance. I want to generate threat, so even if I'm doing crits in Berserker Stance is not a lot of threat. And the other thing that I might do here is I might pop Berserker Rage, which will be in this position when I'm in Berserker stance. Again, it's making me immune to fear, and it also generates more rage when I take damage. So let's see how I do. So I'm chasing her down, Berserker stance. Okay, I was about to hit Recklessness. I ended up hitting Berserker Rage instead, so here's Berserker Rage. So I'm immune to the fear that she just cast, and I'm generating more threat if she does damage to me. Or generating more rage if she does damage to me. Okay, so I'm trying to use Shield Slam, it fails because I'm out of rage. Then I realize that I need to have a different tactic. I hit Berserker Rage, and now I'm going into Recklessness. This will continue to make me immune to fear, and I'll be doing all of my shield slams and all my melees will be criticals. And so if I'm in defensive stance while I'm doing this, then that's going to be a lot of threat. What's the situation like on the ground? I'm third on threat. Cov is another tank. That's good. And then Zilt is sadly in the Eaton territory, unless I can make up this difference, which is 12k right now, which is a lot. Okay, Cov apparently gets hit by a fireball because he is gone on the table. Zilt is slowly being eaten. I am doing as much damage as I can. Okay, so Zilt does a great thing. He runs to the front. He's over here. He kind of just meandered over here, and that brought Onyxia into position. So he's just sort of sacrificing himself, so he's gone. But he did a great thing for the raid, because now, after his death, I was the one who was trying to catch him on threat, and now I'm at the front, and I'm tanking Onyxia. So now I need to shift a bit. I still need to generate a lot of threat, but I also need to do a lot of staying alive. And so with that in mind, Recklessness is about to wear off, but I'm going to take a lot more damage until it does. And I just hit Blood Rage, but it looks like I did get a heal, so I'm not low on health. I just need to focus on doing, I guess, there's going to be a modified tank rotation, and I'll show you what that is in a moment. Okay, so I'm trying not to stand on the cracks. This message, I'm going to be trying to pay attention to it. As I recall in this fight, the first couple times I'm discombobulated because I'm trying to do too many things at once, and so I don't end up doing what I can do, which is, I'll show you in a bit when I start to execute well. But anyway, Bellowing Roar makes me run in fear. There's Tremor Totems down, it's not too bad. But it does move, so the problem with that is it moves the boss around. So she'll be here, and her tail is like back there, and her head is in front. So she can spray with this with Flame Breath. But if I end up running, so let's say I run in fear over to this position, then what happens is her fire breath is going this direction, her tail's going that direction, and that's really going to screw up a lot of people because they're also running in fear. So that could be very bad for the raid if she keeps shifting like that. Okay, so I'm going through my tank rotation, a lot of shield slam, a lot of Sunder Armor. I get caught with another fear. It's getting pretty bad how far I'm moving. So trying not to stand on the crack because the cracks do lava damage to me. Okay, so now I'm getting clever. I've kind of hit my rotation. I'm not feeling quite so discombobulated. Bellowing Roar is about to happen. I shift into Berserker stance, and I'm going to hit Berserker Rage. That's going to make me immune to fear for 30 seconds. And why I'm doing that, I mean, yeah, there's the danger of shifting into Berserker stance, but it has this advantage, which is, see, the timing's right there. I shift back into defensive stance. But look, I'm here in the front still. The boss is still turned in a reasonable way, and everyone else is running in fear, but I have not repositioned the boss, so it won't be this strange pivoting that Onyxia does. And now I'm back into my tank rotation. A lot of shield slam, revenge, Sunder Armor as a backup. I hit shield block so as not to be crushed and to activate the revenge hits. And, okay, I'm looking at my threat here. I've been doing good on my rotation. I am 20k above everyone else. So things are going really well for me in terms of generating enough threat. All of that, all of the crits that I did by Recklessness while in defensive stance, have done a lot for me. Okay, so at this point I'm doing my rotation, I'm trying to stay alive. I mean, things are going well because I'm wearing that fire resist gear, so I'm not taking as much spike from the flame damage. Like the flame breath hits me right there, but I resist it in some way. There's a bellowing roar. I had switched over to Berserker stance to do Berserker Rage. It's a very close timing on that, but if I can do it cleverly, then I can not be feared. Another bellowing roar. Problem with this one was uh, I had just used Berserker Rage. I guess I resisted it. I didn't realize you could resist bellowing roar, but I stay in place. Maybe I caught a lucky Tremor Totem hit. Still going through my tank rotation. She's dead. Okay. Do I ninja loot? Alright, well, there's still time to improve on that. In any case, picking up in Phase 3, there's a bit of luck. You can't be fireballed. You have to try to really understand your threat table and position yourself on the threat table and know your raid. Know how they work, know the synergy, kind of know what you can expect in terms of how much threat people will generate, who the melee is, who the ranged is. And if you know all that and you get lucky, then you can end up picking up very quickly on the Phase 3. And in this case, we only lost one of our characters due to me not being able to position on threat above them. But, I mean, if I go higher, then I might get fireballed, so there is that. So I think I might have been the one to sacrifice him. So I'm sorry, Zilt. But I'm glad that I picked up in Phase 3, and that was our kill.